Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Giselle, I review fragrances, and today I'm here with fragrances that perform incredibly well under extreme summer weather conditions like high heat and high humidity. These fragrances actually are quite a surprise. I'm not gonna talk about tropical, citrusy, fruity, or those typical creamy white florals or juicy fragrances because those don't come as a surprise to anyone, right? So this video is about unexpected notes that perform, as I said, incredibly well under high heat, high humidity. So if you're interested in learning more about these fragrances, stay tuned. So usually when it comes to fragrances, it is very common to hear fragrances for summer or for spring or for colder months. However, there are other factors that are super important when it comes to consider a fragrance performance, including smell. So high humidity to me, it's a very important factor. And as you probably know, I've been to Hawaii. I just came back recently and I had the opportunity to test more than 20 fragrances that I brought with me. Of course, I didn't bring all the bottles, but I also made a few decants so I could test all these fragrances for you guys, and I'm making this video after testing, as I said, more than 20 fragrances. So these are the winners, the top performers, and I want to share them with you. So to make this video, guys, I'm not taking into account the compliment factor. That's going to be on another video, but it's all about performance and smell. And there are 6 notes that really stood out to me. They really came as a surprise because I have never expected these notes to perform this well, ever. I could imagine, that's why I wanted to test them, but I would never expect such a great result, and I'm gonna share them with you. And the notes that really stood out to me were powdery notes, nutty, mineral / aquatic, woody notes, especially sandalwood, spicy notes, and hear me out, suede. So let's get started. The first fragrance I tested was Orchid Powder. This is one of my favorite fragrances from Montal. It's totally different. So if you're familiar with Montal, you probably know this is a house that has a very distinctive DNA, but this fragrance is totally different. Actually, if you are blindfolded and you smell this fragrance, you will never guess it's a Montal fragrance, and it is Orchid Powder. I love this fragrance. It's super feminine, super powdery. I know many of you guys bought it after my review, and you guys let me know that you are super happy with the fragrance, which makes me super duper happy. It's a very beautiful fragrance, super feminine, very extremely powdery and creamy. But this is like, I always say, this reminds me of the Asian stationery. I remember when I was a kid, I used to collect Asian sticky notes or stationery, and they came with this type of scent, super powdery, almost doll-like. Some people say it smells like a doll's head, and I can get it because that's why I say like doll-like. That's how that Asian stationery smelled to me. And yeah, this fragrance is pretty much in that direction, but on another level. It's not like plasticky or anything, although it is a synthetic fragrance. I have to tell you, it smells a little bit synthetic, but nothing wrong with that. It's absolutely beautiful, it's sexy, it's feminine, it's super creamy as well. Now, what I've discovered is that this powdery note becomes even more prominent under high heat and high humidity. And this fragrance also projects better under these weather conditions. And I think it has more to do with the humidity than with the temperature, because I have this fragrance for a while. I tested this fragrance during other summers and I didn't come to any conclusion as I came after this trip. So I realized that the high humidity really plays an important role when it comes to projection and when it comes to enhance this powdery note. So if you like powdery fragrances, this is the queen. And if you live in a tropical place like Florida or Southeast Asia, I have many subscribers from Southeast Asia, so for you guys, you should try this fragrance. You will love it. When I tested this fragrance in Hawaii, The smell reminds me of vanilla ice cream with a coating of powdered sugar. This is exactly how I would describe this fragrance. Very powdered, but very, very creamy and sweet as well, without being cloying, but feminine, flirty, sexy. It's a really, really beautiful scent, but you need to appreciate powdery and creamy notes, especially when they play together, because this is how they are in this fragrance. So it is Orchid Powder by Montal. So the second fragrance under the powdery notes that I've tested is Woman in Gold. This is, guys, this is so gorgeous. This is an urban chic, vanilla, powdery, floral, citrusy scent. Super, super feminine. It's very sparkly, very fizzy. It's a crowd pleaser. Very inoffensive. It has some aldehydes in the opening, but as I explained before, usually aldehydes are in the top notes, so you can't expect them to fade away in a matter of maybe 10 to 20 minutes. This fragrance becomes even more powdery under these weather conditions, more invigorating. This is a very energizing, a very invigorating fragrance without being herbal, because sometimes you find that type of invigorating fragrances, infuseur fragrances, or fragrances that are more herbal, even masculine. But this one is not. This is completely the opposite. This is absolutely 100% a feminine scent, and it is still very invigorating, and under high heat and high humidity it becomes even more invigorating. The powdery note is enhanced, and it also lasts longer. I usually get 6 hours out of this fragrance. Now in Hawaii, I got 8 hours. So the temperature and the humidity definitely played an important role. So yeah, it's stunning, guys. It's very, as I said, it's very contemporary. It's a classy fragrance, signature scent worthy with a contemporary twist. It is not classy like a Chanel fragrance could be, for example, or an Hermes fragrance could be, but still it's signature scent worthy. This is a fragrance I would wear every day, all day, every day actually, and I will never get tired of it. So the second note that I've tested in Hawaii was the mineral / aquatic. And I said slash because sometimes, or I would say oftentimes, these two accords are combined. So it wasn't really a surprise to me that they performed well, because during all these years I already tested mineral accords or oceanic, marine accords, and they definitely perform better during the warmer months. But again, the humidity factor is not always there, right? In this case, it was super duper important to me because I could discover other things about the fragrances. In this case, I'm gonna talk about right now about Rose Atlantic. I've talked about this fragrance before. If you've been following me for a while, you know I love this fragrance. This is one of the most different rose fragrances you can find in the market. Definitely not a safe blind buy. As I always say, this is the least safe rose fragrance blind buy. It is very, very different, and I love it for that. I don't like to smell like everybody else. I think fragrances should be something very, very personal, and this is why I like it. It doesn't mean that I like all fragrances that smell different, right? But when I like a fragrance and on top of that they smell really different, it's like the cherry on the cake. So this is the case. I love Rose Atlantic. This is a very, very mineral type of rose. This is not your sexy, your mysterious rose. This is totally different. This is watery, this is dewy, totally different take on your typical rose. Usually we see rose fragrances combined with notes as leather, suede, oud, patchouli, vanilla. Well, guess what? You won't find anything like that here. It's a completely different type of rose. Even if you don't like rose, you may still like this fragrance. So as I was saying, this is dewy, this is mineral, this is ozonic, slightly marine, slightly salty as well. Very beautiful. It's very fizzy. It's also very calming with a very prominent linden note. There's no doubt there's linden here. And I'm gonna say the same I said when I reviewed this fragrance in one of my previous videos. And it is that when I smell this fragrance, it makes me think of a rose soaked in a glass of ice cold sparkling water. That is what this smells. If you could infuse that sparkling water with a rose this is how it would smell. Stunning. I think that comparison is pretty close to what you will find in this fragrance, but you will need to add a little bit of salt and a little bit of linden. If you're familiar with linden, you know a little goes a long way. You just need a little bit to make a nice infusion. Linden has calming properties, it's renowned for that. And yeah, you can smell the linden here. So now, I hate linden. I remember when I was a kid, my mom used to give me linden tea to sleep well during the night, and I used to hate it. But here, it's beautiful. It is so beautiful, so calming, so relaxing. This fragrance also is very, very dewy, so it has oak moss. Oak moss is a moss, and it always gives fragrances that dewy type of accord, like Gruyere, for example. It has similar vibes. It's a completely different scent, but when it comes to the dewy feeling, it's very, very similar to Gruyere. This is 100% a unisex fragrance, and what I could see under these weather conditions, extreme weather conditions, like tropical weather, is that the mineral accord becomes even stronger, it lasts longer as well, and it projects much better. So yeah, this is Rose Atlantic. Even if you are not a rose fan, you might still need to try this. DS and Durga is a niche house. They make amazing fragrances. Their fragrances are a hit or miss. I had to tell you, their fragrances are not for everybody. In most of their fragrances, I feel are for more trained noses. Like if you're starting out your journey into niche fragrances, for example, I will recommend to go with DS and Durga because their fragrances are pretty complex in the best possible way, of course. But they are complex, and if you're just starting your journey into the niche fragrances, you might not be able to appreciate all those notes. But they make amazing fragrances, super high quality, and I am in love with Rose Atlantic. So the next one in the mineral aquatic category is Bleu To Quas by Armani Privé. I already talked about this fragrance. I will link it here. I think it was in the Summer Vibes Part 1. And as I said in that video, this fragrance has been created to pay tribute to the Indian spirituality. There's a lot of the Indian culture here, starting off with the color, which according to the tradition, it has healing and protection powers. I love this color. And this is a beautiful, beautiful fragrance, also very different. It's pretty incensey, oceanic. It's very salty, ozonic as well. When you smell this fragrance, the only thing that may come to your mind is a beach, period. There's no other way to think of this fragrance because it is a very marine fragrance, but although you might think of a beach, it's not a beachy scent, as counterintuitive as it may sound. But I say this because, yeah, it does remind me of a beach immediately, but it's not tropical. It doesn't have coconut, it doesn't have tiar, it doesn't have frangipani, it doesn't have Tahitian gardenia, it doesn't have gardenia, tuberose, nothing like the typical flowers or tropical accords that usually you see in beachy fragrances, right? Or typical summer fragrances. So as I told you at the beginning, the fragrances I'm talking today are not the typical summer fragrances because it wouldn't make sense, right? The fragrances I wanted to test are fragrances that are in the typical summer fragrances, and for that reason I wanted to share them with you guys, and I tested more than 20, and this is one of those. And not only I tested this fragrance, but it is one of the top performers. It's absolutely stunning, 100% unisex. This is not a safe blind buy. Actually, I don't recommend to blind buy fragrances, but if you do want to blind buy fragrances because you just like it, you enjoy the surprise factor, or because you're not able to test fragrances, I will link a video here that I made a while ago about how to safely blind buy fragrances. But back to the topic. What I found about this fragrance during my trip was that the incensey note became stronger. And when I try to think of that, I am a very analytical person. And when I try to think why, if this fragrance has been created to pay tribute to the Indian spirituality, in India, you know that incense is part of their culture. So India is also a very warm country, right? They have high heat. I'm not quite sure about humidity. It's such a big country that probably there are different areas, but it is definitely a very warm country, and they use incense a lot. So if this has been created to pay tribute to their culture, it doesn't come as a surprise that incense comes so strong under these weather conditions. And yeah, that was my whole thought process about the why. Because if I smell it now, yeah, it is pretty hot where I live, but you don't smell the incense that strong. However, under high humidity, the incense, it's like front and center. It also makes the fragrance smells better. I don't know why. I can't pick any other note that really stood out to me, but the whole fragrance smelled divine. It smelled more beautiful than it actually is. And yeah, again, high heat and high humidity. I haven't noticed anything different in terms of performance, either projection, lasting power, sillage, but I did notice this thing about the incense accord, and also about how this fragrance truly bloomed under these weather conditions, and it smelled divine. Yeah, way more beautiful than what I smell now. And I love this fragrance, don't misunderstand me. But if you live in that type of weather, please, you need to try this, because you will get an even more beautiful fragrance. It is stunning. To Quas by Armani Tribeca. So guys, the next note that really stood out to me, and I kind of tried to make different categories so I can organize the video in a better way. So the woody note is the other note. The fragrance that really was a surprise to me was Centaur Complete. I love this fragrance. I reviewed this fragrance before, talked about this many times, and I'll stick to what I previously said. This is, to me, the perfect vanilla sandalwood coconut combo. Now, what came to a surprise to me is that lasting power, gosh, I don't know what happened, but the lasting power, usually I need to layer this fragrance. As much as I love Centaur Complete, my pet peeve is the performance. And I said this before, I don't care, because the fragrance is so beautiful that I always try to find a way to work around it, and I either overspray or I layer. I will link the video here where I share with you how I layer this fragrance to make it last longer. But in Hawaii, I didn't even need to layer this fragrance, because the lasting power improved significantly, and it's amazing. It smelled even more beautiful. It did come as a surprise to me. I never expect a woody fragrance to smell this good under high heat, high humidity, but it did. I never got so many compliments while wearing Centaur Complete as in Hawaii. Really, and the sillage in projection also improved significantly. So definitely this is a fragrance. I really wear this all year round, but I discovered, as I said in my video, in my travel vlog, that this fragrance really surprised me, because I never expected that. Honestly, I didn't bring this to test it. I just brought the bottle along with me because it's a fragrance I love. It's one of my favorites in my collection. But of course, in the normal wear, I had a chance to test it, and so I am telling you this now. So if you live in a tropical place, in a tropical environment, you should definitely try Centaur Complete, because not only this is a gorgeous fragrance, it smells super luxurious, but it also performs way better. So yeah, this was really a surprise to me. I'm super happy that I had the opportunity to experience that. So the next accord that really stood out to me in terms of performance in this fragrance is the warm spicy. And I say this because usually we tend to use warm spicy fragrances in the colder months, right? But this one, guys, this is the Chronic. It's an extrait de parfum by Byron Parfums. Actually, I discovered this fragrance thanks to Lala. We did a sample swap with Lala Beauty, and she's super sweet. She's a beautiful lady. She sent me a sample of the Chronic, and I fell in love with that. Although it wasn't love at first sniff, honestly, it grew on me. After that, I bought a sample, and I remember I have tried this fragrance before in the past, and I didn't like it. So when Lala sent it to me, I started to like it, but I didn't love it. I bought another sample, Started to like it, didn't love it yet, but I kept trying and trying until I said, okay, you know what, I have to go for the full bottle. If it doesn't work, I will sell it. But I am very mindful when I buy fragrances. I am very impulsive usually, but when it comes to fragrances, I am very mindful and very intentional. So I really took some time to figure out if I wanted to buy the full bottle or not, and I did, and I can't be happier. This is stunning, guys. It's a very, very gorgeous, sweet. It's very warm, very resonant, very ambery, spicy, sweet. It's almost, I won't say it's cloying, it's not, but it's very sweet. And cinnamon and pepper are the most prominent notes. It's a very spicy scent, very spicy. It also has leather, has patchouli, has musk. However, I smell the leather now, not under tropical conditions. So if you don't like leather, don't be turned off by this note because you won't pick it at all. Actually, what came to a surprise to me is how well this fragrance performed. It smelled really, really creamy, way creamier than it smells now, way softer, super, super smooth and rounded, very comforting, very welcoming, almost like the way you will feel a skin scent in terms of how cozy it makes you feel, but it projects even more, way more, honestly. This was among all the fragrances that I tested and among all the fragrances that I pick as winners, this one had the best sillage, literally. Usually get 8 hours out of this, but in Hawaii I got 10 plus, if not 12. It's stunning. It is an extrait de parfum, so you can expect this one to perform really well, but under tropical conditions it blooms. It's absolutely, absolutely beautiful. So if you live in Hawaii or any other tropical paradise or any tropical city around the world, you should definitely try this. So the next note that has two top performers, two winners, is the nutty note, and this is one of the two fragrances I picked under this category, which is Tribeca by Bond No. 9. This is a glorious fragrance by this niche house. It was created to embody the vibes of this neighborhood in New York City. It's so gorgeous. It's a gourmand scent. It's a gourmand lover's dream, to be honest. It has cacao, it has green hazelnuts, which are very, very prominent. It has ambroxan, it has caramel, which gives this fragrance that typical gourmand accord. Very, very creamy, very nutty, very nutty. And I realized that the nutty note is the note that becomes the star under these extreme weather conditions. The nutty note becomes even stronger. It is strong enough. Hazelnuts among the nuts are the most different ones. It's an accord that it's creamy at the same time. It's not so dry as bitter almonds or even green almonds or walnuts. Hazelnuts have a very particular smell, and in this fragrance it's the most prominent note. I would say hazelnuts and caramel are the most prominent notes, but under tropical conditions I would say the hazelnut, it's like center stage. It's the star of the fragrance, and the caramel as well. Caramel gives this fragrance a lot of creaminess. As I said before, it gives the fragrance that gourmand accord, that addictive thing. Let me try it. It's stunning. It's very, very long lasting, very long lasting. And I got between 10 and 12 hours in Hawaii. And I know this for a fact because I sprayed this in the morning before leaving the hotel around 9 a.m. And when I came back in the night to have a shower and get ready to dinner, it was around 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. and I still had fragrance on my skin, and I even had to rub it in the shower to get rid of it. So I got almost 12 hours, and that is without even overspraying or spraying clothes. You know, I don't spray it on clothes, but without even overspraying or putting any body lotion or anything. I just left the hotel, zack, 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 and that's it in 12 hours, guys. It's incredible. It's absolutely beautiful. It is a very long lasting scent no matter what. I wore this during the winter as well, and it is very long lasting. I think around, I can't remember, but let's say a good 8 hours. But in summer and extreme weather conditions, very, very long lasting. Remember, I always make this little disclaimer. This is based on my skin, and we are all different. I have a skin where fragrances tend to last a little bit longer than the average. I've always been like that. Same fragrance, my mom and I, we always talk about that fragrances that for her, they fade in 3 hours. I get sometimes 8 hours. It is what it is. Because we are all different, and yeah, we might not get the same results, but this is based on my own experience, and what I can tell you is that this baby is a top performer no matter what, but in tropical settings, it's a star. The next fragrance under the nutty note category is Rolling in Love. I love this fragrance. I talked about this fragrance before. It's a super sexy, very, very unique floral, vanilla, powdery, musky, nutty scent. Very, very sexy, very creamy. It's very lactonic. It has almond milk, so you have two notes here. You have the nutty note and you have the lactonic note. It also has iris, it has freesia, tonka, vanilla, musk. It's very musky, and what I've discovered is that, again, the nutty note became very prominent under extreme summer weather conditions, as well as the musky note. So in Hawaii, this fragrance performed better. It seems that the performance in terms of lasting power was a pattern among all my winners. And among these two nutty fragrances, I would say the nutty note becomes more prominent. Both fragrances become even creamier. Both are very creamy, but under high heat and high humidity, both smelled even creamier, if it makes sense, if it's even possible, because they are like whipped cream to me. But yeah, they were even creamier. And this fragrance has musk as well, so that component was also very, very prominent. It gave this fragrance like a cloudy, fluffy type of scent, if it makes sense. This is a super beautiful fragrance. Honestly, I wore this fragrance only during the night, so I cannot tell you for sure how many hours it lasts, but it definitely projected better. And again, the sillage was stronger as well, like a fluffy cloud. Not as strong as the Chronic, for example. Here as well, it does have a nice sillage, but there it was even better. It was even better because it was more noticeable, if it makes sense. But yeah, Rolling in Love is a beautiful, beautiful fragrance. To me, it was a typical winter scent. I will never wear this fragrance in the summer. Same with Scarlet Poppy, which is very, very similar. I always said those are fragrances that I will never be able to wear in the summer because I find them very, like, they could be a little bit too much. But no, at least I haven't tried Scarlet Poppy, but I tested this one in high heat, high humidity summer nights. It's a dream. This fragrance is a dream, guys. Super, super, super sexy. So the last note that came as a surprise to me, guys, was Suede. Yes, Suede. And this is the fragrance I have tested, which is White Suede by Tom Ford. Honestly, I kind of expected this type of performance because, as I told you before in one of my previous videos, this is the only leather/suede fragrance I could wear during the summer, because usually leather fragrances, well, suede is a type of leather. It's softer, it's more flexible, it's more battery. I prefer suede because in fragrances it is more feminine and it is less animalic. Usually leather fragrances tend to be more animalic, more earthy, even dirty, in the best possible way, of course, but those are not typical accords that I enjoy in the summer. However, this is a fragrance that I always wear in the summer. Actually, I like it even better during the summer. And it wasn't that much of a surprise to me, but it surpassed my expectations because I never expected to perform this well. Although it wasn't that much of a surprise, I never expected this type of performance. Even though leather, it's by nature smooth and battery, under these weather conditions it became even creamier, more battery, smoother, almost like an ice cream. I don't know exactly where that extreme creaminess came from, but probably it's not just the suede, but it's also the orris kicking in. The orris is the root of the iris flower. The iris usually has a powdery accord, while orris can be powdery, can be earthy, but can also be very battery, very creamy. So I think that is the orris combined with the suede accord that under high heat and high humidity, boom, perfect combo, match made in heaven. This fragrance has rose, lily. It's very clean. It also has saffron. It has olibanum. Olibanum actually it's another word for frankincense, which give fragrances green, woody, slightly dry, and slightly spicy note. This is pretty watery, pretty clean. It's a very unique suede scent, to be honest with you, because usually they don't have lily accords. They are not watery. Leather or suede fragrances tend to be, as I said before, more earthy, even more animalic. Usually you don't see lily or watery notes in leather fragrances. This is probably why this fragrance it's so clean and so, I would say, watery. Yeah, it's a very different suede fragrance. It's absolutely beautiful. It also has sandalwood, another creamy note. So we have orris, we have sandalwood, and we have this suede note, and that explains that burst of creaminess, because literally it smelled like a suede ice cream, if it makes sense. And it also has tea notes, which probably is making this fragrance also very watery combined with the lily note, right? But again, it's not common to find a leather fragrance with lily and tea notes. This is a very unique leather scent. I adore this. It's suede. Again, it's not leather suede. It's a variety of leather, both in fragrances and in clothing and everything. But yeah, white suede is one of my favorite fragrances, and under high heat and high humidity, it's a bomb. So guys, this is it for today. I hope you enjoyed my video about my top performers for extreme summer weather conditions. And yeah, let me know in the comments below if you're familiar with any of these fragrances. I love when you make comments or ask questions. I am very interactive with my audience. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. And yeah, I hope you stay safe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.